Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Worst Witch, the 2017 live-action series that ran for 4 seasons. This is my all-time favorite Worst Witch adaptation. There has been 4 live-action adaptations, and hopefully this will not be the last. It's actually because of this series that I started watching the original series and stuff. And like I remember like back in the day when I used to do Netflix, you know how they do like recommendations on Netflix? So this thing popped up and it kind of looked like almost like a CGI cartoonish drawing of the 3 girls, like, an explosion happened in the cauldron and their face all smutty and their hair is all messed up. And I'm all like, what the heck kind of cartoon is this? And so I just wasn't interested. And so, like, one time I was on Wikipedia and I was researching called The Midwife, which is a show on PBS, a British show that still is going on after all these years. Like, it's been a long time. I think they're probably like in their 13, 14, maybe 20 of something like that season. I don't know. It's been a long time since that show came out. And the original lead actress, Jessica Raine, it said on Wikipedia that she was on this show. Well, of course, people can change things on Wikipedia, and it turned out to be a lie. So I'm all like, oh, if Jessica Raines is on this show, then I'm gonna watch. Because she had left Called the Midwife very early on in the first couple of seasons. I think she leaves after the 3rd. And so I'm all like, I was a huge fan. Like, I want to see more Jessica Raines and stuff. So I finally checked this out. And to my surprise, it was not a cartoon. It was actually a live action, show. And it was extremely enjoyable. This show is just awesome and amazing. But then when I started watching, I started to get a little mad because of the fact that this felt very similar to Harry Potter. And I mean, I was getting mad because, I used to watch Harry Potter back when I was in college when it first came out in like the early 2000s and stuff. And so I'm all like, man, The Worst Witch just like completely ripped off Harry Potter. And I'm just like, I was just like fuming and everything because there was way too many similarities. But then to my surprise, when I researched it, it's actually the other way around. Actually, Harry Potter ripped off The Worst Witch. It was Harry Potter that actually ripped off The Worst Witch. The Harry Potter series came out about, a decade and a half, maybe 2 after The Worst Witch was written. Yes, transphobic author, that of J.K. Molding Rowley and everything, ripped off Jill Murphy's The Worst Witch. And I mean, it is literally a ripoff. She claims it's an homage, but it's too much of a similarity. It's even to the point to where the author, Jill herself, hated being compared to like Harry Potter. It used to like irritate her and stuff because people's all like, did you know that they do this and they do that and this person's similar to this person? She just did not like hearing that and stuff. And even the actress in the 1998 series who played Mildred, she's not a fan of Harry Potter. She stated in an interview a couple of years ago, she read the first book and she saw the first movie, but she just couldn't get into it because of how similar it was to her show. And that started to bug her and everything, especially when they will like ride on their brooms and she's all like, they're riding their brooms wrong. Like, you're not supposed to ride it that way. You're supposed to ride it the way we did and stuff like that. So she couldn't get into it because she clearly saw what everybody else saw at that time, that it was a blatant ripoff and stuff. How much of a ripoff is it? Well, All right, so here are some of the similarities between the Worst Witch and Harry Potter. So, your main protagonist, like, didn't even know they was magical at first. They go to a school that looks like a castle. I'm about to say college. Castle that is like on like a mountain, kinda. And so, like, there are different houses in this school, and they are separated by four colors. Your main protagonist, the hero of like the series, has like really dark hair. They are very new to like witchcraft, but then they always end up saving the day and always defeating the bad guy. At school, they have a bully that happens to have blonde hair and is really, really mean and jealous. At the school, their potions master is a person with like long, dark black hair who wears an all black outfit and talks very slow and menacing and does not like the hero of the series. The hero has like two best friends. One best friend is really smart and very cautious, and the other one is a troublemaker. One of the best friends has a hairstyle that is similar to that of the hero. Both best friends are more, the hero's two best friends are like frenemies and stuff. Wizards use wands and staff. The whole flying on the broomstick, that's just a typical witch thing, so that doesn't matter. For whatever reason, in the first year, like, the hero goes invisible, but then all you see is like their head. The main villain has some type of personal attachment to that of the person that runs the school. The person that runs the school is an older person with a soft-spoken voice and is very kind. The PE teacher is the one who teaches them how to ride their brooms and has kind of like a lesbian vibe to them. And it's female and stuff. Trying to think of anything else. The hero has sometimes become a little cocky and everything. They rise up in the ranks of like the school and tries to be like the head like boy or girl. Now in the 2017 series, they started taking inspiration from the Harry Potter movies, so every teacher was like, in each season was like evil. So that, I don't think the books were like that at all. The person that runs like, the entire like witching world or whatever they want to call it is like a male who is very temperamental and doesn't really like our hero all that much. There's like an invisible cloak that hides magic from like the real world and stuff. Trying to think of anything else. I can't really think of nothing at this like point in time, but there's just way too many similarities and stuff. Why can't I say that? Why am I putting the extra similarities? Well, on the world on me right now. It's late. I need to get some sleep. But yeah, it's like there's so many like similarities. That's it. And in the television show, the original television show, when they do their magic, they speak Latin. I don't know if they do it in the Worst Witch books, but in the original series, they spoke Latin. And so they do that the same thing in Harry Potter. And, it's just one of those things. Like, and they call the male witch like a wizard instead of a warlock. I mean, and they wear like robes. Well, actually, no way. In Miss Cackle's Academy, they don't wear robes. They wear like dresses and aprons. So never mind about the whole robe thing. But yeah, it's just way too many similarities. Oh, but wait, the tie. So they have like a dress shirt underneath and they wear like a tie and everything. And it's just, there's just too many of them, man. It's just, it was little things picked here and there. But, don't get me wrong. Harry Potter does change a lot and has his own stuff as well. But, if it wasn't for the Worst Witch and everything, You know, like seriously, man, like seriously. Like it's such like a so-called homage, but I think it's a ripoff, man. And it's just like, there are way too many similarities, but then there are also enough differences to make it like different. And of course, the Harry Potter series is a heck of a lot more darker and stuff like that. And it's the Harry Potter books, they expand its lore a heck of a lot more to where it's really like, death defying and gripping and sorrow, because the Harry Potter books are more for a mature audience, even though it started off for kids. But it's a heck of a lot more darker, whereas the Worst Witch is a lot more lighter in tone and, stuff like that. But it's just uncanny how much she like ripped off from like, the Worst Witch. And it's just like crazy, man. And I just never knew that. And a lot of other people never knew that. Because a lot of people just never heard of the Worst Witch, especially if they were like American and stuff. And the Harry Potter books, there are so many of them. And there's so much money to be made off the merch and the movies. And now this new Amazon not Amazon, but HBO Max television series. There's so much merch and toys, clothes, wands, and you never see that with the Worst Witch. You never see merch because for the most part, there aren't that many like merchandisable type stuff. Like maybe the outfits, yeah. The brooms are generic, but there are no wands. They do all the spells by like hand and like, chants and stuff like that. But there's not enough like merchandise that comes from the Worst Witch that can be like sold and make into a huge thing. Also, the Worst Witch has never been theatrical. They've had Jill Murphy herself, may she rest in peace. I remember, I think I read somewhere she got tired of people always like bringing that up because, it's irritating. Like, the Worst Witch books were written in like the 1970s and stuff. And Harry Potter wasn't written until like somewhere around like the 90s, maybe 80s or something like that. Because the first Worst Witch book came out in 1974. And there's been like over 5 million copies sold. There are like several books. There's at least about 8 books and everything, and so this is like a big franchise that a lot of people just don't know of. And, I'm really ashamed that I just never knew of this, like, franchise. But, I didn't have cable back in like 98 and all this other stuff and in the 80s. So I had no idea because for the most part, you just don't hear about the Worst Witch. Where is the merch at? You know what I'm saying? Because there isn't much merch. Because there aren't that many like props within like the books and stuff. There's broomsticks, sure, and I guess some people can cosplay as like the uniforms and stuff, but that's really about it. And in Harry Potter, you have merch galore and everything. I mean, in this new series, I guess they can do the Founding Stone, which is something I would love to have, but they just don't make merch off like this franchise and stuff. And till this day, The Worst Witch has only had one movie, but it's a television movie. It's never been theatrical. So in 1986, there was a television movie of The Worst Witch, and it was a musical of all things. Now in the US, it came out on HBO, and like it's weird because Mildred Hubble was played by an American in that, and that don't make no sense because she is British and stuff. Now the actress who plays her, Fairuza Bark, she's the one who played Mildred Hubble, and Tim Curry was in the movie, Diane Rigg, and also Charlotte Rae. And so Jill has literally said she doesn't like the movie because they changed way too much from the original source material, including some of the names. Now, something you will realize throughout the entire franchise is that like a lot of the teachers' first names are completely changed. And that's because in the books, the teachers didn't have first names and stuff. I think only Agatha Cackle, the evil twin, is the only adult who had like a name. But then from time to time, some of the students will names will change as well, like Maud from the original series to the new 2017 series. Then in 1998 to 2001, The Worst Witch came out. And for a lot of people, that is their favorites. That's the one they grew up. I never knew it existed. I just got through reviewing that. Go watch that. It's a hybrid of a Canadian British show. And like it stars that of Georgina Sheraton. And so, like with that one, it's a bit more faithful to the books. It's actually Jill's favorite series, but she doesn't like the last series because they ran out of source material, so they just started making up stuff on their own. It got really weird in the third season. And as much as I like that show, like I said in the review, it's not gonna be for everybody in the modern day because it's a very outdated show. The show came out in 98. It was on the heels of like, the new millennium and everything. And so, or turn of the century or whatever you want to call it. And so like, and of course the books are very outdated from the 70s, so like it might not be everybody's cup of tea. No, actually, wait, there have been 5 adaptations of The Worst Witch. I forgot about the one of the spin-offs. So in 2001, Weird Sister College came out. It's also titled, The Further Adventures of the Worst Witch. And so like that's when like Mildred and Ethel go to college. They're the only 2 recurring characters. Felicity Jones comes back as like, Ethel. And so I just personally didn't like it. It's just not for me. It only lasted for 1 season. But then there was another spinoff in 2004 called The New Worst Witch. And so that stars that of Mildred Hubbell's cousin, Hetty Hubbell. And the only reason why that only lasted the short time it did is because the lead actress just didn't want to come back, and she wanted like, to like star in other stuff. And it was quite a shame because that was actually a pretty fun series and stuff. And then came the 2017 series, which is very unique and very special. It's the longest running series in the entire franchise, lasting for 4 seasons. And one of the reasons why it came so short and didn't get like a 5th is because for the first time ever, the lead actress had to be replaced. This is why you see 2 different Mildred Hubbells on like my cover thing, because normally in The Worst Witch, yes, they do replace characters. What is it, like Mrs. Hardbroom got replaced from the original series and that of like the New Worst Witch. Then in this series, Maud got replaced after the first season. Then of course there's Ethel, who got replaced in the original series and stuff. But never, ever, ever, ever has the lead actress herself been replaced. So with this series, it is a CBBC television series, like children's British broadcast company or something like that. And also the ZDF company that also helped make this. And in America, it was shown on Netflix. And so, like, in this series, Mildred is played by two completely different characters. Bella Ramsey played her for the first 3 seasons, and then for the last season, she was played by that of Lyda Page. And I like both actresses in the role. This was like some big shoes to fill for Lyda because Bella did an amazing, and I mean an amazing job. It's because of this series I am a huge Bella Ramsey fan because everything I have seen her in has been good. Her performance, that is. There are some projects she's taken on where I don't like the projects, but still her performance is very, very amazing. She is a very talented actress and everything. And it was kind of shocking that she left because when they replaced her with a redhead. And this is the first time Mildred has been played by a redhead. And technically, I believe in the book, she does have red hair and stuff. But she's always been played by brunettes. And the rumor has it, the reason why Bella left is so she can focus on her mental health. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just going to go by it because that's the statement that was always put out. But so I was like sad. I'm like, oh no, I'm never going to get to see her act again. But then shortly after, she started appearing in more projects. And now she's on The Last of Us. So I do wonder if it really was mental stress that got to her and stuff. Or was it like something else behind the scenes? Because we don't know what the heck happened behind the scenes and stuff. Till this day, we kind of really still don't know why the first mod left. Supposedly, it's because the actress just didn't want to keep commuting and stuff, traveling back and forth. I don't know if that's really the story or not. Then, Drusilla left after the first season, and it was just kind of odd because she's in the books and stuff. And so we really don't know what the world happened behind the scenes. And, playing on a magical show can be very stressful because, you have to be on harness wires. You have to pause a lot for the magical stuff to happen. It's a lot of dialogue to remember because she is the lead and everything. She has to constantly trip and fall down and do all this other stuff, and she's a kid because this is in this series the worst witch characters are actually played by pre-teens and little children and stuff, and that's how it's supposed to be in the book, whereas in the original series they were played by older teenagers and stuff. And so when you watch this series and you see the younger cast, it makes a heck of a lot more sense. I wish this series was out on DVD because I was so buy it. Because when I said this is my favorite version of The Worst Witch, it really is. Because of the simple fact, it's more evolved than that of the original series and that of the books. They have elevated the source material that came before it and stuff. And that's something you're supposed to do in the modern age. They also stick to that of the books. But the thing is, they kind of bop around the books and stuff. And then they take the source material from the books, but then they modify it to fit that of a modern age. It's way more magical. It's way more adventurous. It's way more fun. And no disrespect to the source material that of the original series, but the original series is, like I said before, outdated. It's a 90s, early 2000s show, and the books are extremely outdated from being that of a written back in the 70s. So being in the 2020s or 2010s, I should say, it has been evolved. It has been elevated to the next level and stuff like that. So they had to change things around. And I don't know how Jill felt about this series. She was still alive at the time that the series was being made, but I've never seen her comments on the show and stuff. But hopefully she enjoyed it. But if she didn't like the alterations in the third season of the original series, then who knows how she might have felt about this. But, this is a new, well, not technically the new Worst Witch, because that was a different show, but this is a Worst Witch for the new modern age, for something for younger people and even adults to get into, because I was an adult and I got into this, you know what I'm saying? This is actually what got me into that of the original series. Like, the CGI looks phenomenal in this series. The flying has been upgraded big time because they now have the technology to perfect it. The only thing that I don't like CGI wise is balls. They can't CGI a ball like to save their career. Like, they can't. It doesn't matter the size of the ball, it doesn't matter what kind of ball it is. Every CGI ball you see in this series looks like crap. The only time the flying ever looks like horrendous is like a few times, like once every season and stuff. But other than that, like, the flying looks amazing. I love the teleportation. It's been enhanced and stuff. I love, like, the smoke and sparkles within, like, the magic and everything. I love how it looks more colorful and, like, vibrant of, like, the older, like, series and stuff, because, like I said before, no disrespect to the 90s series, but if you was to create the 90s series exactly the way it was back then and put it in front of a person today, they might not like it all that much because it's very, very, very outdated and stuff. You get to see more of, like, the exterior and interior of, like, the castle. Certain characters, not all, have been race bent, like Enid and everything. She is now black in this series, and Drusilla is now, like, biracial, but they got rid of her after the first season. The characters' personalities are a whole lot more elevated and stuff. Like, Millie is a lot more vibrant and cheerful and, like, awkward and stuff like that. She really feels like a little kid in a kid series, or a preteen in a kid series, which was something kind of odd. I could never sometimes always relate to the original one because they were older teenagers, but the storytelling was very juvenile, like very young, you know what I'm saying? And it just didn't fit. Here, it fits. It reminds me of those first two movies of the Harry Potter series, where they're younger and the storytelling is a lot more younger. But it's not just all laughs and games. One thing they elevated in this new series is that it's edgier and stuff. Like, it's edgier for, like, a kid's show, you know what I'm saying? It gets dark at times, where it's kind of like, wow, they're doing that on a kid's show. And as the series started progressing, more and more of the edge started, like, to come. But it's still tame for kids to watch, Like, they still keep the whole, like, Agatha, she just turns people into frogs or balloons because she's not going to straight up kill somebody with her magic like Voldemort will, because they have to keep it on that kid's level and stuff. And I get that it is a little irritating, but they have to do that for, like, the kids' sake and everything. And there are some performances I like in this series better than the original, and then there are some performances in the original one that I liked a bit better than, like, this one. Also, like, Sybil isn't just a whiny crybaby in this series. Yes, she still cries. Yes, she still is terrible at witchcraft. But, like, in the original series, my God, they had that girl crying non-stop and whining and everything. But that's how she is in, like, the book. Here, they make her still awkward, still clumsy, and she gets upset, but she's more scared than anything else. But she does have a hint of bravery in her, where she will try to do something she knows she can't, but then, always fails and has to be rescued. Because that's just how Sybil is. Now, I remember when Sybil and her friends showed up in the second season, I was very, very confused because I had never seen the original series or read any of the books. when I started seeing like, Sybil and her friends getting so much screen attention from that of the original trio, I was just kind of confused. I'm all like, are the original trio gonna graduate or leave? Are they being replaced by this new cast? Like, I didn't know what the world was going on. But then when I watched the original series after watching this one, because I was lucky enough to find it on YouTube, the original series at that time. Now you can watch it on Tubi. Because I'm like, oh, so Sybil does show up in the second season with her friends and stuff like that. And so I had like no idea and everything because it started seeming like Millie and her friends were kind of getting like pushed aside at first, you know what I'm saying? But it very much is Mildred's show. And with 75 episodes, they had to elevate stuff. Now, also, a lot of these characters aren't exactly so one note as they were like in the original series. Like they have evolved on the character personalities and stuff, which is a great thing. However, what they did to Ethel in this series, my God, she is twisted in the head. She is like, just like so like vicious and everything. Way worse than all the other depictions of her. But at least they got her hair color right. And I do like the cast. The cast is really fun and everything. That's why it was really sad to see some of them get replaced and then the show ending and everything because a lot of the younger cast have not gone on to do very much. Bella Ramsey and Tamara Smart are really the only two who are consistently acting and stuff. But like I said, they do alter a lot of the source material. And I mean, they alter a lot. But then they also add some features into the show that like never made it into the original one, like that little dog and stuff. But when it comes to the show, like I said before, is has 4 seasons, a total of 75 episodes, they're about 20 minutes each. And the first season of the show, this is where we get to know everybody, we get to know the characters. We learn that Mildred comes from a non-magical family. She discovers witchcraft through Maud, and she goes to Cackle's Academy, and she is the worst witch. So throughout that first season, we get to see Mildred adapt to witchcraft and witchery and stuff, and she has a very difficult time. I know that Jill Murphy said she based Mildred off herself because she had to go to like an all-girls school and she constantly got picked on. She was a little clumsy and stuff like that, and that's very much how Millie is in this show. And there's a threat in the form of Agatha Cackle, the evil twin sister of like Mrs. Cackle. So Mildred has to be the one to save the day because that's what she does. She always saves the day and everything. And it's more than just saving the day of like what the original series did where there's a play going on and then something happens where the play is not going to happen and Mildred has to figure a way to help it. They elevated a bit more than just that in this series. In the second season, the Founding Stone becomes a big part of like the overall plot. Basically, it's the living magical being that inhabits the school, and like a lot of the magic is tied to that. So when it dies, everything goes haywire and stuff. And so like there's another evil threat who's trying to help out like Agatha Cackle and stuff. Here we get a bit more development. Like Millie is on like a search to find out how exactly she comes from a non-magical family, but yet she's a witch. And it will be explained in like the finale and stuff. Because it's turned out she does have an ancestor who is magical, but there's a reason why it skipped 13 generations and stuff. The characters are pretty much still the same. Ethel goes through a little bit of a metamorphosis in personality, but then she's still the most, like, she's still wicked and everything. We get the new first years and stuff, like, the new trio. They added a brand new character to the show to give Sybil another friend. Um, and there's a teacher there that is very highly suspicious. But a lot of the personalities do tend to change in the second season because, they have to evolve. The third season is a bit different and slightly darker. In this one, Millie becomes a lot more selfish after saving the school from the previous season. And because of that, she ends up giving her mother powers when her mother becomes the new art teacher at the school. In this season, we learn why you should never give a mortal magical powers and make them a witch. And so it turns out that, like, it really causes a mortal become like impulsive, and they can't control their powers and they become temperamental. We learned this lesson twice. First with that of Mildred, but then it parallels to that of Indigo Moon, a person from Mrs. Hardbroom's past. In the fourth and last season, which I guess there are no like books talking about Mildred's like fifth year, or maybe there's like no fifth year period. But anyway, in her the fourth season is a whole lot more darker. Mildred and Ethel are competing for like head girl. And so in this is when we get the brand new Mildred, and she has red hair, which, correction, I saw once a drawing of Mildred and it had her with red hair. So I always assumed she had red hair, but apparently in the book she had black hair. But in this one, it's like we get to introduce to Mildred's father and everything. Something that was mentioned about him, I think, early on in the second season, or maybe first. And so basically, Ethel, unleashes Agatha. And Agatha hasn't been seen since, like, I think maybe the first season. She was mentioned in the second, and we saw her painting and stuff. But it's been a while, and then Mildred gets sent to like this bad girl type of school, and a lot of other bad stuff starts happening. Like Miss Cackle get turned into glass and shatters and stuff like that. There's a new male teacher. And so, of course, Mildred has to like save the day again. And also the ramifications of what happened with the whole Indigo saga from earlier that previous season. But for the most part, it is considered probably like the darkest of all like the seasons, but dark on a kid's level and stuff. And of course, they change who becomes like the deputy head girl in the season because they wrote Enid out of the show. And so now one thing that's different from this series, from the original, is that they tend to use potions a whole lot more to get certain things done. Also, the intro is different. At least in the first season, I know when it comes to the intro, there's an American version and a British version for some bizarre reason. Like when it's on Netflix in America, for some reason, it's a completely different intro. But like the intro is completely different from that of the original series, which bums me out. One of the things I loved about the original series was the intro is the girls just flying in on brooms, and it's a very soothing song that plays in the background. Here it's more like someone opens up like magic opens up a magic book, and you see clips from the show along with the names of like the cast, and it's more like a jingle type song. It's a fun song and everything, and it fits the nature of this goofy show. But I do miss that song from the original series. that Onward to Miss Cackle's Academy and stuff. Oh, I love that song so much, boy. But like they do sing in this show, like, 'cause they have chanting classes, but you'll never hear that song, but you'll come close to hearing that song a little bit, at least the opening part, but that's about it. Also, there are some episodes that kind of take inspiration, at least it feels that way, from like the original series. And maybe it comes from the books, I'm not sure. But there just seems like to be like some episodes that are kind of parallel to it. Also, when they use their magic, you no longer hear that music, that like music whenever they're about to like use their magic from the original series. I do miss that because it gives it more of a magical feel, you know what I'm saying? Also, when they fly on their brooms, they don't say hover to make it like, hover up in the air. I kind of miss that. It's just like a fun little element that the original series like put into it. Now, when they greet each other, they always put their hand on their forehead and they kind of like they tilt their head a little bit. They did that in the original series as well. I'm not sure if they said anything in the original series whenever they did it, but they say well met whenever in the new series whenever they do it. The outfits are very, very, very similar to that of the new Worst Witch. There's not much color in them, except for like the belt part and their stockings. But like Mildred is the only person who does not wear stockings like the other girls. But instead, she wears like socks. But her socks are interesting. Like on one foot, or one leg, I should say, she raises her sock as high up as she can to her calf area. But then on the other leg, she pulls it down to more to her ankle. Not sure why she does that. Also, in the first season, she's the only person who has an really, really like giant long like scarf around her neck. Very similar to that of the Harry Potter movies. Because it's kind of like you realize since Harry Potter stole from them, they took a couple of elements from Harry Potter. I mean, fair is fair, you know what I'm saying? Now, as for the individual colors on their belts, I've never known what those colors mean. I need to research this probably after I get through recording this small little tidbit because I've never known what that meant. I know in the original series it means for whatever different like, year you're in. But here, I'm really not sure because Ethel has purple, Mildred has red, and Enid and Maud have yellow. And yet they're the same like year class and stuff. Now, one thing this series does that the original series never did is that it emphasizes on the relationship between Millie and her mom, where her mom takes up a good chunk of like screen time in the third season. This is something that never happened in the original series because we never got to meet her mom. Also, we get to meet some of the other girls' mothers and fathers, something we never did in the original series, except for that of Ethel. Now, when I reviewed that of the original series, I said that the main person of the show is Mildred, being like, the main focus of the show. And because she's like the A-list character, but the B-list characters in the original series were the teachers and the students were the C-list characters. Here it's completely different. Mildred is still the A-list, but it's the students that end up becoming the B-list, having more to do in interacting with Mildred and really interacting and stuff. Like to the point where in the original series, Maud and Enid were more just like best friends along with Jaju and Ruby and stuff. They were just like her friends and interacted like friends, but they never really truly helped her solve any like, um big obstacles or helped her save the world. Where in this series, Maud and Enid are like front and center helping her figure stuff out, very much like Hermione and Ron. Also, Ethel, just like in the original series, she has a lot to do, but her character is more elevated up to where she causes a lot more of the bad stuff that happens at the school. Where and also by the third season, you do start to see Maud and Enid take a bit of a back seat to that of the new characters, and as well as the new trio and stuff. And as for the new trio of Sybil's friends, they have a lot to do in terms of the show. And it's the teachers that are like the C-list characters, where yeah, you still get to learn more about them, but they don't take up that much time or screen time on the show like the teachers of the original series. In the original series, it felt like the teachers at times were the main characters and everybody else were just like recurring and stuff. And I do like that because, it's a kids show and you're supposed to emphasize on the kids and more and not so much the adults. And just like with the original series, they do create brand new characters and give them storylines and focus on them. Now, one thing I really, really, really enjoy with this series, that something they did not do with the original, is that there is a clear separation from the wizarding world or witch world or magical world, if you want to call it, and the mortal world. That is something that always bugged me about the original series, because in the original series, they were just so willy-nilly and would just expose magic like all the time, especially at Mrs. Cozy's little cake shop that she had. There'll be like human mortal people in there and they'll just be using magic. Magic would happen and nobody would say anything. Miss Cozy knew about witches. When they left the castle, the school, like they met that dude on the road, and then there's the Boy Scouts and stuff. They would just always expose magic. And they even had somebody who worked there who wasn't even magical and stuff. And then their relatives knew about magic. And so that was always something that bugged me. Here, they really, really, really try to hide magic from the mortal world. To the point where when the great wizard like came for the first time, he came in a taxi cab and he erased the mind of the taxi cab driver. Then in like, later seasons, I believe it's season 3, they go to like, the mortal world and everything, and they're invisible. So nobody can see them and stuff. And so like I always appreciate that because you're not supposed to know about magic and they try so hard to hide their magic and everything. But it's not just like only that. The witches are very unaware of how the mortal world works. They never been on a train, don't even know what a train looks like. They never been to a TV station. Like Maud and Enid wanted to hang out with Mildred during the summer with her mom because they were going to be on a train. And that's something they've never been on before. And then when Maud went to like the city for the first time, she was just in awe of like everything. And it's just kind of like, well, wait. So what exactly does the witch world look like that's so different from like the real world? And of course, when you have Mrs. Cackle's Academy, there are no TVs, there are no radios, there really isn't no technology. They have tablets, but it's more like their tablets are like which they call matlets or something like that. It's just like a chalkboard that has like holographic stuff to it and a screen to it, or they can write messages and stuff. And they don't have cars because they fly on brooms and stuff. So, it's really interesting. I would have liked to see more of the magical world other than Miss Cackle's Academy. And that one, like, place where they like the head wizard dude goes and stuff like that. And and I really appreciate, the naivete of like witches when they go to the real world and they're just like very fascinating. Also, Mrs. Heartbroom, when she was a teenager, she was in the mortal world and she was just fascinated by everything. She's all like she's never heard people sing or dance and all this other stuff, but she has. It's different type of music and different types of dances. Actually, I don't know if they dance over there at the Wizarding World. I know they do music, but it's chanting though. And so she was just like having like a blast and everything. And so that's something I've always appreciated about this new series. Because the old one really didn't do that. Another thing is when they do their magic, they don't speak Latin like in the original series. However, this is kind of changed at the end of season 3 finale and the start of season 4. See, Mildred asked Miss Cackle they should start accepting other girls in Cackle's academy that don't come from traditional magical families, but that have the magic inside them. Now, it's a little fuzzy as to what exactly does she mean. We know Mildred came from a witching family 600 years ago, but the powers lay dormant for 13 generations. That's how she is magical. Indigo is a little bit more confusing. When it comes to that of Indigo, she met Miss Heartbroom as a teenager when they were both teenagers, and somehow she was able to see that of Miss Heartbroom. And she asked her how, and she just says that she believes in magic. Does she really come from a witching family that just lie dormant similar to Millie? Or is it just that she believes so much into magic that she can just see magic? Not quite sure. And so, like, because of that, they used the wishing star to give Indigo magic. So most likely she never came from a witching family, or it just lied so dormant it just was never activated. But most likely she never had no magic and just really believed in it. So what exactly does that mean for the girls in season 4? You know what I'm saying? Like, are they similar to Mildred or are they similar to Indigo? It's something that never happened in the books, I believe, and it's just something that they just added for the show. And I don't know how I feel about that because when it comes to the 4th season, I mostly like the second half of the 4th season a whole lot more than the first half. And they start introducing more characters, so other characters that's been there for a long time start to get like less screen time, and it's a little confusing. And of course, it ended at the end of season 4. Now, one thing I've noticed about this series is that it takes inspiration from the books, but just like I said before, they bop everything like around. So like when I think in Mildred's, I forget what year, I think it's her 4th year in the books, she becomes like lantern monitor duty and stuff, but this happens now in the 3rd season. And so a lot of stuff gets like mixed around in the series. Like Mildred's 2nd year, she get turned into a frog, just like in the original series, but in this show, it happens in the 1st season. And so let's now do character bios. Okay, so character bios. I'm gonna start off first with these minor characters because they were barely in the show. So Drusilla Paddock, played by Tallulah Milligan, she was in the 1st season and in the 1st season only for some reason. At the start of the 2nd season, they said she transferred to Miss was it Pentangles or Pandagles? Pentangles, I think it is. Pentangles. So anyway, she is Ethel's best friend, just like she is in the book. In this series, however, she's been race bent and does not have her red hair. This version, unlike the original series, seems to be dumb-witted and just does whatever like Ethel like wants her to do. It's determined that like she's not very good in her classes and stuff, and she even gets intimidated by Maud when Maud wants to know what did Ethel do to Millie. So she put like Drusilla on her broomstick and they flew as high up into the sky as they can as that terrified Drusilla. There's not really much they did with this character, and I don't know why, because she's supposed to be Ethel's best friend and everything. And she had a whole lot more to do in the original series. Now, the actress, her mom is famous and is an actress. And I remember I read an article saying that her daughter was thrilled to be on this show. It sucks that they wrote her off like so quickly, because once they wrote her off, she was only mentioned one time as the show that she transferred to another school, and that was literally it. Ethel never brings her up again. Ivy. So Ivy is a really unique character in the show because of the simple fact that when it consists of the cast, it's only that of the main and recurring cast. Background characters never say anything, but this was kind of like a guest appearance from like, an actress and stuff. And we've never seen Ivory before, and this will be the only episode in which we see her in the third season, titled The Game. The Game is one of my favorite episodes. Basically, they've changed now what a Maclet looks like. Now it looks like a regular electronic tablet. And so the girls are playing some type of like square game on there. And it's like this holographic thing that you can see like above you. And so when you win the prize, you get like a bracelet. But then there's a mystery going on that people are disappearing. And so they see that certain people who played the game have disappeared, but then they realize there have been adults and other people who have not played the game, and yet they're disappearing and stuff. And so they realize something, that a lot of the girls' energy, magic, have been drained from them. That's because the game drains your power. When they track down who made the game, they find Ivory, but nobody seems to know who she is. She says she's been there for about 2 or 3 years, but people just don't pay attention to her because she has no friends. She's very lonely. So she built the game in order to get new friends, but she enabled the game to like pinch a little bit of people's magic because her magic's not that great. So she realized, hey, if I have more magic and I can do more spectacular stuff, people will be my friend. But it ended up draining all their magic, and it made the people very obsessed when playing the game. So, she's not a bad person. She just made a mistake. So the girls tell her, just remodify the game so that it doesn't take nobody's magic. And then say you made the game and everybody will just be your friend. And so that's basically what happens. And then she's never shown again. I'm just kind of like, where is she at? Like, this is like very shocking for them to have like a guest appearance of a student who you never really see go there. If they were going to create the Ivory character, they should have made Ivory this character. Who is this character? Who is this actress? I have no idea. I cannot find it online whatsoever, not even on IMDb. In the second season, this actress appears in nearly every episode in the background. She normally stands near Ethel and some of the other main cast members. She's always there, but she never does anything and she never says anything, but the camera is always focused to her. This is quite a shame because at this point in time, they could have had like, because the actress does have what appears to be dwarfism and stuff, and so that could have been some really cool like representation if they would have had her say or do something, you know what I'm saying? Because you're just like watching and she's just standing there and you're just like, come on, say something, say something. So that was a missed opportunity. But then in season three, they introduced the character of Mabel, and Mabel have dwarfism, and she's the daughter of Mrs. Tavioka. So she appears only one other time, and that's in the fourth season. I don't see her at all in the third after the second season. Miss Mold. Yeah, that's her real last name. She is a character from the book and also from that of the show. She never appears in the original series. Now, she is the art teacher there at Mrs. Cackle's Academy. And right from the start in the second season, you can tell there's something up with this character. There's something shady about her, but she doesn't do anything like shady for the entire series, not until like the end. It turns out that she's trying to get Mildred to join this special academy for witches who don't want to follow the witches' code and everything. And it turns out she's working for Agatha Cackle and everything. She wants to release her from the painting. So she came to the school, but didn't necessarily have a plan on how to like free her. Then when the founding stone got revealed, she knew she could use that. But the problem is it was missing. So when she finally finds it, the powers of the founding stone is now in Esmeralda. And so it started to crack and freeze the entire school. As the school and everybody else is freezing, she tells Mildred, there's nothing we can do. The whole like thing is completely shattered and let's just leave. But then later Millie finds out this is a lie. She tries to convey to that of Mrs. Mole kinder side and human side and everything, and tell her, you was my favorite teacher. We both do the art. You taught me so much. Like, why would you do this and everything? At first, she doesn't listen to her, but then later on, she comes around and she helps the group out because Mildred gave up her powers to give back to the founding stone. But then Miss Mole decided, what, your words really touched me and everything. And so I'm gonna give you back your powers and I'm just gonna give up my powers and give it to the founding stone. And so now as a result, her powers have been completely stripped. And if she were to ever have kids, they will not inherit magic, not until like 13 generations have passed. And so she got sent off to prison. In the book, she's a heck of a lot nicer and doesn't do anything bad. One thing about Mrs. Mold in the series is that they race bent her, I believe, to be Pakistani. The Great Wizard. So, the Great Wizard, they renamed him the Great Wizard in this one. It was the Grand Wizard in the last series. And so, this dude's appearance changes. It's to the point where I didn't even know he was played by the same actor. When he first appears, like he does what he does in the book. He shows up. Mildred and Ethel like fly into him on their broomsticks when it's Halloween. He gets pissed off and stuff like that. He's a very bombastic type man. He's grumpy, he's angry, but he is in charge of the whole wizarding world. When he first showed up, his appearance was completely different. He had a normal short hairstyle, no beard, and he arrived in a taxi cab, but he erased the memory of like the dude who was driving the taxi cab. In the second season, when he reappears, now he looks more traditional. He has long gray hair and a long gray beard. And he no longer uses like mortals like in taxi cabs to come to the castle. And so basically, he gets turned into like a balloon by Agatha Cackle. He gives a wishing star to Mrs. Bat and Mr. Rowan Webb when they get married. He fires Miss Cackle and has like the whole campus investigated because way too much bad stuff has been going on. And then when she got fired, it's because it was fake signatures that got her fired and stuff. He does have like a grandnephew or something like that who he gets furious at because he's traditional. He believes wizards use staffs and wands and witches just use spells and chants and like potions and stuff. His grandnephew wants to chant like a witch, and he refuses to because it's against the witch's code. He later comes around to like accepting his son or grandson or whatever he is, a grandnephew, because like his grandnephew dressed up as a girl and started singing and chanting. And he thought it was so amazing that he was shocked to find out that it was actually a boy. So he decided to change the rules on that and stuff. He no longer appears in the series after the third season. Despite wizards using just wands and staffs, we never see Rowan Webb or the Great Wizard ever use one. Miss Gullet. Miss Gullick was a teacher at Cackle's Academy in the first season only, but it turned out she was secretly working for that of Agatha Cackle, and she helped take over the school. She's basically her minion. And so her and Miss Cackle literally take over the school, but then they got Miss Cackle, they got sent away. And when Miss Cackle had her power stripped, with the help of Gullet and stuff, they helped free Miss Cackle, and then they try to take over the school once again, only to get trapped inside a painting, and we've never seen her since. Even in the fourth season, when Miss Cackle got released from the painting, for whatever reason, she never released Miss Gullet. Miss Hemp Nettle, boy, that's the name right there. She is the new PE teacher in the fourth season when Mrs. Drill takes over chanting classes and when Miss Drill hurts her back and is unable to do the PE stuff. Every season there's an evil teacher and Miss Hemp Nettle is the evil teacher. She takes an interest in Edith when Edith turns out to be really good at sports and track and field. So in order to do track and field in the wizarding world, you have to do a potion and it makes you run very fast. Basically, in this season, they try to emulate what the Flash looks like when he uses his Speed Force in the CW's Flash show. It doesn't look impressive at all, and it doesn't even look like they're running fast. They made them run faster in the original series, but whatever. So it's later revealed that like Miss Hemp Nettle is the one who caused Mrs. Drill injury 20 years ago when she pushed her off her broom when they was competing for something. She lies to Enid, and for whatever reason, Enid believes her and does not believe Miss Drill. Now, she's known Miss Drill for 4 years, technically 3 in a couple of months, but she's known Miss Drill for a lot longer than Miss Hemp Nettle and only known her for a couple of months. And yet she believes her for whatever reason. So she has Enid still like the potion that Mrs. Drill uses to run really fast. So once she gets it, she hightails it on out of there and goes back to her original school and gives it to her other track and field students. This really upsets Enid to where she runs away and go joins her mom and dad like performing like thing that they do. However, Enid comes back and she races and wins, and she gets kind of like this scholarship to go to like a better sports type school where Enid is later written off this show. But yeah, like I said before, like normally when the evil teachers come to school, they want to take over the school, but like this one just wanted to win at sports. Mr. Daisy, he takes over for that, Mr. Wormwood and everything. So he takes over magical science. He's a very goofy, very silly man who has a crush on Mrs. Tavioka, and she has one back on him. Throughout this season, you think there's something up with him, like he's evil, But apparently, he's just been building a machine, but he's been using crystal water, and crystal water can see into the future. And so, like, he has his machine makes potions, which Miss Harbroom does not like. And she's been pissed at him all season because of his goofy behavior. When he gives that of Mildred, like the water, so she can travel back in time, Ethel finds out. She goes to tell, but of course Mildred's not there. And so instead he takes the blame and he ends up getting fired. He's the only other male to teach there. With his skittish, scaredy cat behavior, this is how Mrs. Bat should have acted. For the first time, we finally got some instance of Mildred's father. She's never been shown in any other live action incarnation, and he appears in the 4th season. It's kind of weird how he just automatically appears. It was written in a very genuine way, but also in a kind of odd kind of way as well. Because it turns out that he never knew about Mildred. Apparently, him and Mildred's mom was never married, my bad. They just dated. Then I think he went somewhere. I don't know if he went off to like the war or something like that, but she wrote her number down for him, but then he lost it. And so he just moved on with his life. And he made another child. But we don't see him married or anything. It's just him and Isabel living together on a farm. He's an inventor and a somewhat wacky kind of guy. Very nice and very humble. He has some sort of stone. I forgot what it's called. A founding something that helps restore a witch's power within their Pacific family. Which is something that could have been really helpful when when other people was losing their powers in other seasons. But I guess if you lose it completely, it won't restore it. But Mildred lost her powers because she was stressed out. Nathaniel and Narissa Nightshade. So these are Enid's parents. And in this version, they are very rich and very famous. We only see her father in 2 episodes, but we see her mother in 3. Her father is a bit more kind of like Enid, likes to break the rules, like to use potions, like to have fun. Like when he's talking to the girls and they're having a problem, he suggests using like a potion. But then when something happens with Maud and the other girls and something happened that needs fixing, he's all like, all right, how much is this going to cost me? And they're all like, oh no, money can't fix this and everything. So he always wants the easy way out. Her mother, on the other hand, is very interesting. In the first 2 episodes she's played by one actress. And then in the last episode she's played by a completely different actress, which is odd. Because now this negates the whole Maud and Mildred using a spell that backfired to change their appearance. And they thought I guess a bunch of kids probably wouldn't notice it, but I noticed it and everything. That is played by 2 completely actresses. And so now it makes you wonder, did she use a spell to change her face as well? But anyways, her mother, it's interesting because in the 2nd episode she's in, Enid wants to join her, but she makes Enid a promise that she cannot keep. And it really upsets her, and Enid just wants to spend more time with her. So she does a spell, but it backfires and turns her mom into a teenager. And she realizes that her mom has been performing pretty much her entire life since she was around Enid's age, a teenager. Because she won a magical contest, and so she's been touring around the world performing ever since. She never went to school, only had a tutor, and never had friends. And Enid realizes that her mom sacrificed a lot just to be famous. But then it's like really odd because she regrets doing that. But then in the last episode, she wants Enid to join her. And then when she's gonna literally take Enid out of school and everything, and when Enid decides she wants to stay, at first, her mom is like really upset with that. It's all like, think about what you're doing. You're giving up the like chance of a lifetime, blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of like, yo, your kid's in school. She has friends. Remember how you regretted that? And then, but later on, Enid later on wins some type of really big scholarship type thing to go to a different school to do more like of that like sports activity. So her and her mom, they leave the campus together. Okay, so now it's time to get into the main and recurring cast members. Julie Hubble. She is the mother of Mildred, and this is the first time we've ever seen her on screen. She is a very kind, very sweet, very enduring mother who lives, I believe, in like an apartment flat along with Millie. They're both artists, and then when Millie realized she had magical abilities, she got to go off to Cackle's Academy. Of course, this left Julie heartbroken, but she knows this is for the best for her daughter. And her and Millie make like a great mother-daughter duo because both of them have each other backs and they just love each other conditionally and stuff, right? One thing she hates is when Miss Cackle always teleports her without permission to the academy because Mildred gets in trouble a lot. And because she doesn't like being like teleported like such a far away distance and being teleported without permission and stuff, especially when she's doing something else. She is no longer married and stuff, and Millie has no idea who her father is. It is later revealed in the second season that her mom, Julie, was actually supposed to have magic. But 600 years ago, one of the Hubbles had to restore the founding stone. And so because of that, their powers were drained and it left the descendants of witches for the next 13 generations not to have magic. So because of this, in the third season, when Millie steals that of the wishing star, she decides to give her mom powers and stuff. Nobody knows this at first except for Millie's best friends. Later on, the teachers and stuff find out. By this time, Julie is now the art teacher in the third season of the academy because Miss Mole got arrested. At first, everything's going kind of okay, but she's having a hard time adjusting with people who have powers. Ethel is being very rude to her because Ethel does not like mortals and stuff like that. When she does get powers, it's really hard for her to control them because she's not used to it because she's never been taught. But she is slowly teaching herself. At some point in time, she does take the blame for something I think Mildred did. And because of that, she was, about to get fired or something like that. However, every season has an evil teacher. And she becomes the evil person of season 3. Because it's revealed that magic and non-magical people turns them evil because they become impulsive because of the magic and they just want to destroy stuff. This is what happened to Indigo Moon back in 1987. And so there's a mystery going on with people disappearing from the school. And Maud is able to find out that the connection happens to be Julie Hubble because every time Julie gets pissed at somebody, she starts to shout at them and act completely different. And so all the people she shouted at, they ended up missing. It turns out she shrunk them and put them in a miniature Cackles Academy clay like castle and stuff. When Mildred finds out, she's like horrified and stuff like that. Mrs. Harbroom explains to her what happens to non-magical people that gets magic. It corrupts them, and then they later turn to stone, just like Indigo Moon, for 30 years. Millie is horrified by this and tries to talk to her mom to give up the magic because her mom lied about giving up the magic before, but she just couldn't do it because she liked having it so much. Somehow, her mom is able to withstand the effects of turning into stone just by shaking it off because she's becoming way too powerful, even to the point of trying to like attack Millie and stuff. But eventually, Loves does conquer all, and she gives up I think she does turn to stone. But Millie came up with a potion that helps free her mom from stone, and also she gives up like her powers and stuff. After this, Miss Cackle is just furious, which is something you rarely see, because she turned Miss Cackle into a small little statue. Miss Cackle tells her straight up, like, this is it. I should have never allowed you to teach at this school because you have no magic, and you have to leave, and you have to leave now. So, when she was saying her goodbyes to Millie, in mid-sentence, Miss Harbroom literally teleported her back home. After this, we don't see her again until the end of the 3rd season. Because, first, there is the marriage between 2 of the teachers. And so she was invited, and she's a whole lot nicer now again, and she helps the new trio to deal with this non-magical man they accidentally brought to the school. So they have him give the is it like a eulogy or something like that? Not a eulogy, but the little reverend dude who what is it called? When you get somebody married. I forget the term. But anyway, so they just pretended like the mortal man's like the pastor dude, and got those 2 married and stuff. And so she helped out with that. And the dude who, he missed his date he was supposed to go on. So she's single. She's like, hey, I want to go out and everything, but she's unable to go on a date with him because Indigo Moon ran away. After giving some words of advice to Indigo and everything, Miss Harbroom shows up, and the school is once again in danger. So those 2 have to go. Her mom appears in 2 episodes in the 4th season. One in just she's barely there, and then the other one is when Maud tries to tell her that her and Mildred got sent to some bad correctional school. Miss Pippa Pentangles. Okay, now I can say Pentangles. I couldn't say it before for some bizarre reason. And so she's played by Amanda Holding, and this version wears all pink. And so it turns out she used to be friends with that of Joy Hecate Harbroom. But for whatever reason, Miss Harbroom just stopped talking to her. Miss Harbroom said that originally it was because, what's her name was more popular and she just didn't fit in, and she was a little bit more serious, and Miss Pentangles kind of likes to bend the rules just slightly and everything. That what was created back in the first couple of seasons, but then they changed it for season 3 by saying the real reason Miss Harbroom stopped talking to her because of what happened to that of Indigo. Because she broke the witch's code, she decided to be a more better student and distance herself from human contact and everything and friendships and all this other stuff. Her and Mrs. Pentangles are like the complete polar opposite. She has blonde hair, she wears all pink, whereas Miss Heartburn wears all black and her hair is black. Miss Pentangles is more glittery with her magic, and she's more upbeat and friendly. And she befriends that of Mildred because she sees a lot of potential in her and stuff. And even to the point where she wants her to come to her school, but Mildred's place is at Miss Cackle's Academy. In season 2, when Miss Cackle got fired, Miss Pentangle took over for a very brief time until it was revealed that Ethel's mom is the one who really got Miss Cackle fired. One thing about Miss Pentangles is that she likes to use what's called modern magic, which is apparently completely different from older traditional magic. How exactly, I'm not really sure, but it is. Vanilla Feverfew. So she is one of the new girls at school. I don't know if she's a first year or a third year because it's never really explained, and she's the same height as the third years, like Sybil and stuff. She is just mean. Period. And there's no explanation as to why she's mean. She's just mean. Like, we know why Ethel's mean and everything, but we have no idea why this girl is mean. And she's constantly picking on that of the trio and stuff. And it's just like, dude, y'all been here for so long. You letting this new girl just like bully you and everything. Basically, they was gonna start a coven together. But the other girls messed up and she kicked them completely out of the coven. Then she just started making fun of them. When she gets attacked by the shadow, they go in to rescue her. Mostly that of Clarice. But that causes her to be all like, wow, y'all saved me after how rude I was to y'all. So then all of a sudden she becomes nice. See, seriously, they should have just made a spinoff and brought them in then. You know what I'm saying? Now, Fenella is actually from the book, but her best friend does not appear in this show. She was also appeared in the original series, but played by a much nicer person. Isabel Izzy Jones is one of the new witches in season 4 who comes from a non-magical family. It's a little confusing as to how she got her powers, but it is revealed that she is Mildred's half-sister. When Mildred was stressed out about trying to be head girl, Miss Cackle sent her on a vacation, so she decided to go on the farm with that of Isabel and meet her dad. It's there that Mildred finds out that they're related once the stone started to glow near Mildred so it can restore her powers and stuff. We don't know who her mother is, and most likely her mom would have to, well, that's the thing I said before, I don't know, because her dad said that Isabel wished for the longest time that, she could be a witch, and then all of a sudden it happened. And so that's why she got accepted into the academy. So most likely her mom probably isn't a witch, or maybe, I don't know, it skipped a couple of generations or something. Like, it's so confusing this season. But the thing that really bugs me is like, she's been at the academy the entire time this season and never, like, did they ever find out that they're related? And it's just so odd because she's been there the whole time. If it would have been revealed earlier, those two could have spent more time together, could have shared stories, could have helped each other out, could have had way more scenes together because they really don't this season. It was such a missed opportunity because, they're trying to follow the books of Mildred and Ethel becoming head girl. But still, it's just, such a missed opportunity. And then to find out, as soon as she goes to the girl's house and meets her, the girl's father, and then she mentions her mom's name, he's like, oh, I know that person. And everything. And, and then the rock started glowing. It just kind of happened a little too conveniently, you know what I'm saying? But the girl is really sweet and really nice. And sometimes she gets embarrassed by like her father, and she's friends with that of Azula. Indigo Moon, played by Kelsey Carradine-Smith. She's an original character created for the show, and what a tragic backstory. I like when they create characters for this show because they really do something special with most of them. And Indigo is probably the most tragic of them all. So, back in 1986, she was just a teenage girl who ran away from home. She was living with her uncle and her aunt, and she likes to do street magic and stuff. And she lived in like a little den type tent type thing out in the woods. And it's there she met a girl named Joy Heartbroom, who would later go on to be Hecate Heartbroom because Hecate is her middle name. And Joy, was a witch. And she was really digging the mortal world, ice cream, music, dancing, and then she met Indigo and stuff. And they became best friends. And so the year 1986 is very special because that's when the television movie came out. Personally, I think they should have went a little bit farther back to 1974 from when the books came out, but hey, whatever. That's still a nice little like Easter egg. So, Joy decided, you know what, this is my best friend and I don't want to like live without her and all this other stuff, so I'm going to give her magic. So she stole a wishing star and gave Indigo magic. Indigo is a very reckless person and very silly. And the magic corrupted her to where she literally tried to destroy the school by setting it on fire. Because it's just an impulsive thing, when the magic takes over your mind. So, next thing you know, Indigo turned to stone. And she remained that way for 30 years. Joy got in trouble and was confined to the school. So then when Millie rescued her mom from being stoned, she also rescued that of Indigo. And so Indigo comes flying in and looking for Joy because Mildred's room was Joy's room. Mildred does not tell her that, hey, even though 30 years have passed, Joy is now a teacher at this school and she's known as Mrs. Heartbroom and she's very, very mean. So she goes the next couple of days trying to learn the ropes of how to do magic and also wondering what happened to her friend Joy. She becomes very depressed and stuff like that and she can't stand Ethel, but she ends up saving Ethel's life when they do the Calco run, and she modifies a broom to turn it more into like a motorcycle. She's a very wild-spirited type person who is a little bit like Enid and likes to break the rules. Eventually, she does find out, like after she runs away and comes back to the school, she finds out that Mrs. Heartbroom was really Joy because Ethel found out and wanted to hurt her feelings. So because of this, she was just like pissed off and outraged and ran away from school again. This is when Ethel used the wishing star to create a fake indigo moon and have her try to destroy the school. And the fake version was way too powerful. And so they realized they have to get the original like indigo moon back to show the fake one, hey, you're a fake copy, you're just a wishing star. This is where all the CGI went in the third season, because in the third season, the CGI is a little wonky. Things that float and hover look a little way too CGI. And that cloud version of Indigo's face looks amazing. But I wish they could have put more like lines in it to show the actual face features and stuff. But nevertheless, it looks really good. And the fake Indigo was like horrifying. She was just trying to destroy everything left and right. And so when she ran away, she went to Mrs. Julia Hubbard's place. and being basically homeless. She's all like, can I stay here and all this other stuff, and because she has nowhere to go. Like, she doesn't know what happened to her mom. They never mention her dad, and her uncle and aunt just don't want her. So after Miss Harbroom convinces her to come back to the school to save it, they save the day and everything, and she's admitted into Cackle's Academy on a trial basis. And so, like, she's just not really getting the hang of it. And also, Mrs. Harbroom is really, really mean towards her. But it's all a ruse because, I'll get to that part a little bit later. But basically, in the next season, her and Millie do a spell that Ethel sabotaged, and it caused Millie's appearance to change. She's still not getting the hang of things over at Cackle's Academy, and she just doesn't really want to be there no more. But then all of a sudden, her magic starts to act up, and she starts to age 30 years like the way she originally would. So she uses it to pull a prank on Mrs. Harbroom, only to find out that Mrs. Harbroom went to the Great Wizard for some reason. What she doesn't know is that Mrs. Harbroom wanted to adopt her and stuff. But because her powers were acting up, Mrs. Harbroom created like a time traveling spell with a very powerful mind eraser, and she sent Indigo back to 1986. And so, like, she has no memory of having magic. Now, this is the part that's a little confusing. There's a lot of stuff that's confusing about Indigo and magic. So, just like Mrs. Hubble, she used a wishing star to get magic, and it turned them both evil. When Julia Hubble got saved, she had to give up her magic because it just would have corrupted her again. But for whatever reason, they don't make Indigo give up her magic. Somehow, she's been cured of turning evil. How exactly? It's never really explained. I like the fact they went ambitious with this character, but they got to the point where some of the things just doesn't make a lot of sense about her. Like, why didn't she have to re-give up her powers just like Julia did? And why was she admitted into like the school other than giving Miss Harbroom a softer side? But it just doesn't make no sense as to like, so either she doesn't have her magic in the past no more and she never met Joy, or she does has it and just don't remember, because Miss Harbroom literally says she erased her memory. So I'm assuming she still has her magic because she shows up at Cackle's Academy because now her daughter has magic and stuff. Once again, this doesn't make no sense because how did Azula Moon now have magic from a non-magical person? Like, you see what I'm saying? So I don't think she gave up her powers. It's just that she doesn't even know she has magic. But how is it that the wishing star powers didn't just come out whenever she gets like emotional? That's what happened with Julie Hubble. So some of this stuff is not very consistent and stuff, and she still has like a vague memory of who Miss Harbroom is and Cackle's Academy is, but she doesn't quite remember. So the spell didn't fully work. So I still think she has her powers because it doesn't explain how her daughter has powers and stuff. But nevertheless, this was a very interesting character they created with a really tragic backstory. And see, the reason why she sent her back to 1986 is because she found a missing flyer with Indigo's face on it, saying that her mom is looking for her. See, Miss Harbroom never knew that somebody was actually looking for her, because it turns out her mom gave her up to her uncle and aunt, but then later changed her mind and went looking for her. But because she was turned to stone, her mom could never find her. So, this is why Miss Harbroom says she gave her magic so she can have a place and be with people. But I think it really was because she just really wanted a friend. And the writer of this show literally said Mrs. Hardbroom is secretly a lesbian because when you see her and Indigo together, it really seems like they're more than just best friends. They really don't want to be apart from each other, and they get very, very depressed when they're not around each other. And so when she goes back to 1986, she finds her mom, and her life completely changes. And it alters the timeline because, like I said, now, she has a kid. But how in the world is Mrs. Heartbroom and everybody else able to remember Indigo if she sent her back before she ever met Joy? So this is why I think she did meet Joy, and then all this stuff happened, and then she went back, and only her mind was erased. Azula Moon. So when it comes to both Isabel and Azula, I wish they could have just made a spinoff and then just had them on there. Because of the simple fact, this fourth season is way too overcrowded. And I mean, it's way too overcrowded. And like, when it comes to that, both of like Azula and say Isabel, and the other new girl, they really don't have that much to do other than their solo episodes. And because of that, the trio slash quartet don't really get to do much this season. They kind of just take a back seat. And so when it comes to Azula, of course, she is that Indigo Moon's daughter. And so when she's there, of course, she's messing up, but she's just like her mom. She's loose. She's a little wild. She likes to have fun. Like, she likes to break the rules and everything. And she gets under Mrs. Broom's skin. But like Miss Cackle and Mildred, they have to remind her, she is Indigo's child. And she doesn't come from a magical family, and the reason why she even has magic is because of you. So Mrs. Harbroom actually is a bit more gentler to that of Azula and doesn't punish her as much as she does everybody else. And even when Azula messed up and Mildred took the blame for her, she knew that Mildred lied, and she decided to reward Azula instead of like punishing her and stuff. And it's a much softer, kinder side that we've never seen from Miss Heartbroom before. But like, when it also comes to her, one of her episodes she was in, we see this shadow sneak into somebody's room, and something's been wrecking everything at school. And then all of a sudden, we see this one girl get attacked by a shadow. It turns out to be that of Azula's shadow. She wanted to cast her fear out of her body, so it went into her shadow, but she had no idea. She's a very sweet girl and everything, but just like with with Isabel, what you see is what you get, and they don't really have time to explore their characters because it's a very focused season that focuses mainly on that Mildred and Ethel becoming head girl. They should have been like in a spinoff. Like they really, really should have, because this is way too overcrowded. Esmeralda Hollow, played by Million Petrie. I guess that's how you say her name. So anyway, she's an original character created for this show. And she has a bit of a tragic backstory, not as tragic as Indigo, but it's a little sad. So she is Ethel's big sister and the head girl at Cackle's Academy. Ethel is very jealous of her because she is like the star pupil. Her parents love her. Ethel's very jealous. And so Esmeralda is very sweet and very kind, unlike her parents and Ethel and all her ancestors. Whenever Ethel's being mean to Mildred, she makes Ethel apologize to her and stuff. And then at the end, I think, what is it, the end of season 1, what is it? At the end of season one, she gives up her powers to that of Agatha Cackle because Agatha Cackle tricked Esmeralda, and Ethel just went along with it, but she had no idea she wanted her sister to give up her magic. And so, because of that, she is now immortal. And she has to learn how to adjust to the mortal lifestyle because it's completely different from that of the wizarding lifestyle. I mean, they have different music, they dance in the mortal world, and they have ice cream where they don't in the wizarding world. And so, because of that, her parents have to give her more attention, which Ethel hates. And it's a stain on their family's name because everybody looks down on them because now they have a mortal in their family, which Ethel does not like, and she takes it out on Mildred. When she reappears towards the end of the second season, she's dressed in like gray tonish type clothes. She looks like really sad and depressed because she misses her magic and she misses Mrs. Cackle's academy. And she's gonna have to start going to regular school soon, which, she's saying that adjusting she's finding it very difficult. She just can't wave her fingers on her hand around and chant because she has no more magic. It turns out Ethel is the one who stole the founding stone and switched it with a copy because she wants to give her sisters her powers back. But she really wants to do it because she's tired of her family being embarrassed. And so, for whatever reason, at first, I can't say her name, Esmeralda did not want to do it, but then later she does because she just wants her magic back. But this sucks all the magic out of the founding stone, and everybody's magic goes haywire at the school because the founding stone is the living embodiment of the magic that happens at the school. And so, and even the school starts to go a little bit crazy itself, and it starts to freeze over. She tries to get the magic back, but can't. And like I told you before, Mildred and Miss Mold, they fixed the founding stone. After that, it's assumed that Esmeralda got to keep her magic. Because since she couldn't give it back, I'm assuming she kept it. And of course, the founding stone is very powerful, so now she's a very powerful witch. This is the last we will see of her in the second season. She's a really interesting character. I wish they could have shown more of her doing more nicer stuff other than popping in and popping out of the first two seasons. But nevertheless, I really do like how they crafted this new character and gave her like a sad story. However, in season 4, Ethel mentions that her sister is about to start attending college. We don't know if this is a normal college or a magical college. Miss Bat, played by Wendy Craig. So this version is nothing like the version in the original series. She is technically the oldest, just like she wasn't, no, she was a little bit younger in the original series, but she is the oldest person at Miss Cackle's academy. And unlike the original series, she's not dim-witted in the head. She's not aloof in the head. She's not crazy in the head. She's very, very, very wise. And sometimes people come to her for advice, and she tends to give it and stuff. Also, this one teaches the girls how to chant. And apparently back in the day, she was a famous chanter and stuff. This version, she is the only witch to use a wand, which she keeps in the back behind her ear. Other than Millie, who uses a staff that she created her own one time, this is very odd because witches don't use wands. She dresses all in black, very similar to that of the original, and only some of the teachers think she's cuckoo in the head, only because she'll see something, say Maud got turned into a baby, right? And she's all, oh, look at the baby I just found. But then when she goes to get somebody, the kids will go and grab the baby and run off. And then when the teacher will go look for the baby, they're all like, what baby? She's like, well, it was right here. And they're all like, oh, Lord, she's like seeing things again. So then she starts to act kind of like a little like, they think she's crazy, and so because she starts making like all these weird noises and so like oh stuff like that, like what's going on? So they think she's crazy in the head. And then one time when Millie has to do a potion, she needs the toenail from like, you know, a wise old person. So she clipped that woman's toenails in the middle of the night, and she walked up and she's all like, goblins or trolls are nipping at my feet. And so people's all like, oh no, she must be going senile in the head. So they make her get like an evaluation and everything. But other than that, she's not really crazy in the head. But like when Millie did that spell, there was this supposed to be like this substitute teacher that's supposed to come in and teach, but then when Millie turned into like an old woman, so she pretended to be Miss Cackle. So then like she pretends to be the substitute teacher, and I noticed something. Her hair is similar to that of the original Miss Bat, and she wears open finger gloves with lace similar to that of the original Miss Bat. Her and Mr. Roland Webb get married at the end of season 3 because it was revealed that they used to be an item back in the day before he got turned into a frog. So when he got turned back into a wizard, they started dating again. And then both of them do not appear in the 4th season. Mr. Egremont Rowan Webb, played by Philip Martin Brown. So, just like in the books, he was originally a frog. Well, technically he was originally a wizard boy who later got turned into a frog. The certain circumstances of how he got turned into a frog are slightly different from that of the original series. So I think in this one, he got turned into a frog by a boy. And so he's been a frog for many years. And when he was a frog, when Millie was a frog, he started to forget who he was. They both later got turned back by the Great Wizard. And it was revealed that him and Mrs. Bat used to be an item back in the day. So they rekindled their relationships. At this time, he is the only man to teach at Cackle's Academy. He has long gray hair and a long gray beard. And he's really silly and really goofy. And he helps Mildred out a lot because she helped him. He still has a taste for flies. And somehow he still has a long tongue from when like he was a frog and everything. He can also leap like a frog as well. It turns out that he gets really jealous of the Great Wizard whenever he's around Miss Bat. And so, like, when it comes to him, one time, it was like, I don't know, like an anniversary or Valentine's. No, wait, it was Halloween, I think. It was Halloween. And Miss Bat, for whatever reason, was upset at him. So Mildred decided to make a love potion. The potion backfired, and every teacher fell in love with Mr. Roland Webb as soon as they looked at him. And when he looked at himself in the mirror, he fell in love with himself. Then when he proposed to Mrs. Bat, Mabel Tapioca created like some type of upside down spell. So everything Mrs. Bat would say would be the complete opposite. So when he asked her to marry him, she's like, no, absolutely not. Never, ever, ever. And she didn't understand why she was saying that. It broke his heart, and he turned himself back into a frog. After all that got like, misunderstanding, got corrected and stuff, those two later got married. The Great Wizard gave them a wishing star, but they gave it to that of Mildred, and Mildred gave it to Ethel, and Ethel screwed up. After this, him and Mrs. Bat are never shown again in the 4th season. Oh, also, I forgot to mention Mrs. Bat constantly falls asleep all the time. Okay, I'm gonna cut it off right here because my video got a little too long. I didn't realize this video is literally 3 hours and about 57 minutes. Yeah, whoa, no, wow, I talked a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna cut it off here and then I'm gonna upload the second half very soon. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.